The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
Well, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Thank you for joining us. It is Pushing the Limits. Hope everybody had a great weekend out there. I know I did. And we're going to go over that weekend with Chris Winn coming up in hour number 2. We're going to talk a little Raiders football coming off of a nice W. I have some positives, no question about it, but let's not get too carried away. But we'll talk a little Raiders football coming up in hour number 2. Plenty of other stuff to get to as well. Man, there's a lot of sports in town. The Vegas Golden Knights finally losing their first regular season game. It had to happen sooner or later, right? They weren't going to win every game. They lost on the road to the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Nothing embarrassing about that. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program as well. And we have some politics to get to. And, you know, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we have the Weiner. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Always love having this guy on. Controversial figure, but a smart guy regardless. And I always love getting his takes on everything and anything that's going on in the political spectrum. And I know he has a lot of opinions when it comes to Israel. The former Congressman, Anthony Weiner, will be joining us today coming up at the bottom of the hour. So look forward to talking to him. Of course, we also have this Republican debate, the third one, that's going to be Wednesday night. So we're going to be having a full coverage on that and get all sorts of different people commenting on it, preview tomorrow, all that stuff. All right, so I want to start with this. So, as some of you might know, the GOP has a new House Speaker, Mr. Johnson. I'm just going to call him Mr. Johnson. I just like calling him that. I don't know why. So Mr. Johnson makes Mike Pence seem like an atheist. This guy is such a right-wing religious nut job. Now, we all know that. If Johnson had his way, he would ban abortion everywhere. He's a religious zealot, for lack of a better term. But as if the story couldn't get any more crazy, we have some news to share with you about Mr. Johnson. Because apparently he told a Baptist church, and there's audio of this that I'm going to play for you, that he and his son, who he referred to, by the way, as an accountability partner when it comes to pornography, apparently. They both shared software intended to help men quit viewing porn by sending a report on the internet activity of the accountability partner. That's right. I'm not making this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. This app is called, it's called Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes. I never heard of it before. But then again, I never did anything like this with my dad. We didn't share, what type of porn we were looking up on the internet. It's very bizarre, very strange. Now, I'm going to play you the clip so you don't think I'm making this up because it's actually true. This is the new GOP House Speaker, Mr. Johnson. So we're going to call him Mr. Johnson, talking about this Covenant Eyes app in trying to get men to stop looking at porn. Have a listen to this.
With Covenant Eyes within your home. And so why is that such an effective tool? Why do parents need to put this into their home?
Yeah, that's great question. We probably could have called this more appropriately a war on the darkness of technology, because there are some good things with technology, of course. I mean, the Bible apps we all love. We broadcast our services, on our social media, and there's some very positive things, but there's also, as Clint's pointed out aptly, some really dark things. So Covenant Eyes is the software that we've been using a long time in our household. I first learned about it at, I think, a Promise Keepers event in the early 2000s. I think it was developed in about the year 2000. But it's the largest accountability software that there is, and there's some paperwork out there on the table that I think everybody may have picked up on the way in. If not, go get it. It's a subscription-based. I mean, we don't make any money on this. I'm telling you, we use it. Okay, I'm endorsing it because I'm a user. It's about $15 a month, $16 a month, something like that. And you get up to 10 devices. And what it is accountability software. So men in a church, men's Bible study groups will do it. That's how it's presented at Promise Keepers. But they also mention, hey, when your kids become teenagers, especially if you have boys, dads, they're talking to the guys at this event, you might want to think about doing this with your sons. And so we've been doing that. And so what it does real simply is it has an algorithm and software. It's way above my head how it works, but it scans, you obviously opt into it, but it scans all the activity on your phone or your devices, your laptop, tablet, what have you. We do all of it. And then it sends a report to your accountability partner. So my accountability partner right now is Jack, my son, right? And so he's 17. So he and I get a report of all the things that are on our phones or all of our devices once a week. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. I'm proud to tell you my son he's got a clean slate, all right? Yeah. But we get a report and it says, hey, no activity of concern, and it's really, really sensitive. It'll pick up almost anything. It looks for keywords, search terms, and also images, and it will send your accountability partner a blurred picture of the image. And so on occasion I get one, I was just looking at the one from this week I got on Jack, and it said, This is the only one that may be questionable, and it's this blurred image of two women talking in a live screen thing, and I zoom in and I have to unblur it, and it's two middle-aged teachers.
Oh my God. Like, I don't even know where to begin with this. Listen, I have some audio here. I couldn't confirm if it was true or not. I've been told that this might allegedly be Mr. Johnson's son, Jack. As soon as Jack got the report of what porn his father was looking up on the internet, this is some exclusive audio here, and I can't confirm it. Allegedly, this is the House Speaker Johnson's son when he learned of the porn, allegedly, that his father had looked up. Have a listen to this.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, it's very tragic. It's very sad. By the way, I want to know what's on Johnson's server. Really. I want to know what porn allegedly Johnson is looking up. So how appropriate that his name is Johnson. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. This guy Johnson makes Mike Pence seem like an atheist. What a nut this guy is. Can you imagine growing up and having a dad and your dad coming to you and saying, son, I want you to be my accountability partner. And then you'd be like, well, what? Dad, what do you mean? What does that mean? I want to know what porn you're looking up if you are. And I want you to know what porn I'm looking up if I am, so we could hold each other to account. Can you imagine if your father had that conversation? It wasn't a conversation about the birds and the bees, right? We've all had that conversation as a kid. But your father wanted to be your accountability partner. This might be the wackiest thing I've ever heard in my life. First of all, is there any boy, child, teenager out there that wants to know what type of porn their father is looking up on the internet? I would say probably not, ladies and gentlemen. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And if you're the type of person that needs to do something like this, then you have plenty of issues of your own. But because we do a fun show here on Pushing the Limits, and because I'm so creative, I'm just such a creative guy, I figured we'd put some Vegas odds on what most likely, if Johnson looks at porn, what that porn would be. So I could actually do the app myself now, and I could actually tell you what I think Johnson's looking up on the internet if I had to guess, if I had to venture a guess. So at the top of this list, I would say if we went through Johnson's hard drive, I don't want to go through any Johnsons, but if I went through Johnson's hard drive, I would guess the number one thing on the list would probably be gay porn. Again, I'm just throwing that. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being gay. Nothing wrong with liking gay porn. I'm just telling you I put that at even money as the favorite, that if we had to look up Johnson's laptop or cell phone or what have you, if he was looking at porn, I would venture to guess it would probably be gay porn. Number two on the list is I think there's a possibility that he could have a Gavin Newsom fetish. Let's be honest. Gavin Newsom's a good-looking guy, right? He's a politician. I put that at 2-1. Number three, Brad Pitt. maybe some Brad Pitt porn on there. I don't know. I'm just venturing a guess. I put that at 3-1. Caitlyn Jenner. I don't know. Some guys are into that sort of thing, so I'll put Johnson up there at possibly looking up some Caitlyn Jenner nudes at 5-1. And then as I go down the list, I said, Barack Obama's a really good-looking guy. Let me be clear. Obama's a good-looking dude. And, maybe there's a small chance that Johnson maybe have some sort of fetish for Barack Obama. So I did put that at 10-1. Kind of a mini long shot there, but you never know, folks, right? You never know. And then I put Joel Osteen up there because a lot of ultra-religious fanatics that are on the far right that might be extremely religious and maybe they're attracted to men. I can imagine that maybe Johnson could be a Joel Osteen fan. Maybe it could be sexual. I put that at 20-1. Now here come the real big long shots, right? Those are some of the favorites, but I would say female-to-female porn. If he was looking at porn, probably not female to female. But, I put it at 100-1. Always a possibility, ladies and gentlemen. You never know. Bestiality, I also put that at 100-1. The biggest long shot I have on my list is black on black porn. I doubt Johnson is looking at black on black porn, but there's also always a possibility, and it's why I put that at 1,000-1. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The favorite is gay porn, and then you go down where the biggest long shot is black on black porn. And let me be clear on that. That could be men or women for anybody that wants to place any bets. That could be men or women. So I wanted to be very clear on that one. The bottom line here, ladies and gentlemen, in all seriousness, and listen, we're having fun with this stuff. But in all seriousness, this is crazy stuff. Like, this is literally crazy stuff. I would be willing to say that if you're a teenager, and I'm not talking about young children under the age of 14 or 15 even, I'm not talking about that. If you're a junior or a senior in high school, and you've looked up porn on your computer, I would venture to say that you're probably pretty normal. That's not an abnormal thing for a horny teenager to do. But if you're Mr. Johnson, you want to have an accountability partner. Can you imagine what sexual relations must be like with Johnson and his wife? Can you imagine? How kinky are they getting in the bedroom? I guess that's another story for another show. But this is crazy stuff, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of problems in the world, and we're going to talk about that throughout the show today as we do every day. This is not one of them. I don't condone any underage person looking up porn and all that sort of thing. It's inappropriate. But for most late teenagers, later on in high school, juniors, seniors, most people that age, I find it to be very normal looking up porn. But if you're Mr. Johnson, the new GOP House Speaker, you have to come up with this app and have an accountability partner. First of all, who calls your son an accountability partner? Like, isn't that just bizarre and weird in itself? Oh, is that your son, Jack? No, that's my accountability partner. I mean, how weird of a person do you have to be to call your son your accountability partner? My goodness. Oh, my God. By the way, I'd venture to guess the person that's probably watching the most porn in that household is probably his wife. You could lead your own conclusions to that. But, I mean, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, this is some weird stuff. I feel bad for his son. I really do. In all seriousness, I really do. Like, this poor kid is going to have to go on his friend's laptop or his friend's phone to look up porn. I mean, that's just not cool, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, I think if we went in Johnson's laptop or computer, we'd probably see some crazy stuff that maybe we expected, maybe we didn't expect. Maybe we'll ask his accountability partner on that. I don't know. Just weird stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And again, as I said, this is a guy that claimed abortion could be blamed for school shootings. That's who we're dealing with here. A lunatic, a crazy person. He said, when you break up the nuclear family, when you tell a generation of people that life has no value, no meaning, that it's expendable, then you do wind up with school shooters. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's blaming abortion on school shootings. But then when it comes to a school shooting and anybody wants to bring up guns or any of that stuff, he just says prayer, prayer. Because he's a lunatic. That's why. He's a lunatic. He also blames school shootings, by the way, on teachers teaching evolution, which is mesmerizing. It's so crazy. He indicated during a podcast last year that he did not believe in the separation of church and state. Now, that's obvious when the guy is kneeling in the House chambers. This is a crazy person. Listen, if you want to believe in the tooth fairy and you want to pray every day in goblins or whatever you think your God is, in the privacy of your own home, I say have at it. Do whatever you want. It's your private business. But he is a policymaker, and he speaks about this stuff publicly. It's dangerous. It's crazy Johnson is a lunatic. Let me be very clear. We all know that Mike Pence is anti-gay, anti-transgender, anti-LGBT community. We know that. Mike Pence is also a lunatic, but this takes the cake, ladies. This guy's 10 times worse. He is absolutely 10 times worse. He is a nut job, and he is a threat to this country, as I would say for any ultra-religious nut job like this guy. He's crazy. Now, to make matters even worse, is there's new audio that's come out that's surfacing. And by the way, Johnson has tried to at least wipe the slate clean with some of these crazy views that he has, but they don't go away because he's caught on tape. So this is Johnson speaking about the 2020 elections and how he tried to overturn it. And he lied about it because he's crazy. Have a listen to this.
You're conceding the election is over and Joe Biden is president-elect.
I don't concede anything. Look, we believe, all of us believe, I think all of us know intuitively that there was a lot amiss about this election day. Look, there's a lot of merit to that. And when the president says the election is rigged, that's what he's talking about, that the fix was in. Some of these lawsuits have a lot of merit, and we need to exhaust all the legal remedies. In Georgia, it really was rigged. It was set up for the Biden team to win.
No, it wasn't, Mr. Johnson. Let's ask your accountability partner. You are lying. It was not rigged. Nothing was rigged. As I say again, Joe Biden won the 2020 election fair. Johnson is a liar. And isn't it interesting, ladies and gentlemen, the people that call themselves the great Christians of this country, right? The good natural Christians, right? The faith-based people who go to church every Sunday. Isn't it interesting that some of these people are some of the biggest scumbags and some of the biggest liars that society has to offer? Johnson is no exception to that. I don't believe for a second that Johnson actually thought that the election was rigged. He was brown-nosing Donald Trump. He wanted to remain in power, and he probably wanted to get to a situation one day that he's in right now as the GOP House Speaker. He is a liar. And while all this stuff is going on, Donald Trump is embarrassing himself in a courtroom. And he was refusing to answer questions. The judge has chastised him for it. Donald Trump continues to attack the judge and others surrounding this case. And they want to talk about everything else other than the actual fraud that the Trumps did, which is overestimate the values of their properties by hundreds of millions of dollars, in some cases, billions of dollars. But Donald Trump's own attorney, who is also a nut job, and it's like a preview of Jenna Ellis times 2, because I'm sure one day she'll be sorry for representing Donald Trump as well. She talked in front of a courtroom today, and in front of that courtroom, she made some very interesting statements, to say the least. So I guess we'll do a little bit of a stop and go here, but we'll talk about it afterwards. But this is Donald Trump's own attorney outside the courtroom during the lunch break today, making a couple statements about how the proceedings went with Donald Trump on the witness stand. Have a listen to this.
You have a right to hire a lawyer who can stand up and say something when they see something wrong. But I was told to sit down today. I was yelled at, and I've had a judge who is unhinged slamming a table. Let me be very clear. I don't tolerate that in my life. I'm not going to tolerate it here. And you know what? You shouldn't either.
Yeah, but you have no problem representing a liable rapist, though, who's had 25 plus women accuse him of sexual assault or rape. That's totally okay. You don't mind defending a guy like that, but God forbid a judge slams the table. That's the end of the world. By the way, attorneys get yelled at in courtrooms every single day. Attorneys are told in courtrooms to sit down every single day. This isn't anything unique. And the people that want to say that this judge is a radical leftist, they have no evidence to back up that opinion. You know, you're entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. The bottom line is Donald Trump, this is what this case is about. It's not about the election. It's not about his popularity. Okay, this case is not about George Soros. It's about the facts. Okay, it's about the facts. And the fact of the matter is that the Trumps, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump, while they want to say they had nothing to do with what was going on, they're lying. They did. And the evidence is pretty clear, ladies and gentlemen. They lied, they committed fraud, and that is why they're going to be forced to pay up. It's very, very simple. This is about the facts of a case. That's what this is about. And the facts lead you to what the judge ruled on, which is the fact that Donald Trump committed fraud and the family committed fraud. That has nothing to do with election interference. It has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans, and it has nothing to do with anything that is politically motivated. It has to do with the facts in this case. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If you don't want to have to go to court and you don't want to deal with what Donald Trump and his family is dealing with, then guess what? Don't commit fraud. Don't say Mar-a-Lago is worth $2.5 billion. I don't know if it's worth $18 million, but it sure as hell ain't worth a couple billion. That's for sure. That is fraud in itself. You can't overinflate your worth by billions of dollars. That is why Donald Trump has been forced to testify. That's why he's continuing to testify today. And that's why his daughter is eventually going to testify later on this week. Don't commit fraud, and this stuff doesn't happen. If you can find me evidence that a Democrat or Joe Biden committed fraud, if you can find me actual, real evidence that he inflated his net worth to try to get loans and make more money, then put Joe Biden on the stand. I have absolutely no problem with it, but there's no evidence to prove that. This is an evidence-based case. And Donald Trump's own attorney did not check off the box for jury, to have a jury. That is her fault. She has nobody to blame but herself. She is a poor attorney. Good luck getting paid, by the way, speaking of poor. Good luck getting paid by Donald Trump and some of his other cronies out there that apparently can't pay their legal fees, like Rudy Giuliani and the MyPillow idiot Mike Lindell and these people that are, filing for bankruptcy. Good luck. Good luck. So if she wants to scream from high heavens that she's so angry that a judge raised his voice at her, if she wants to complain and whine that he banged a table, then maybe you should have the person who you are representing answer the questions when he is on the witness stand, which he is clearly not doing. And that's why the judge is getting very frustrated with him. As the judge said in a courtroom earlier today, this is not a reality show. This is not a campaign rally. You are in a courtroom, and when you are on the stand, it is your job to answer the questions to the best of your ability. It's not a campaign rally. It's not a campaign stop. It's not about airing your grievances about how much you can't stand the judge or how this is election, interference. When you're on the witness stand, it is your job to answer the question that the attorney has asked you, period. It is as simple as that. And that is why, in my estimation and in my opinion, this is why Donald Trump is in a lot more legal trouble than just this case. Yes, he's going to be having to force up a lot of money. He's never going to be able to hold any type of charity in the state of New York ever again. We know that. Will Donald Trump be going to jail? I don't know. Time will tell. But he's in a lot of legal trouble. He's facing 91 felony counts, and I don't believe this will be the last time that he will be taking the stand, ladies and gentlemen. He might be forced to in certain other situations. I don't know. I don't know whether his attorneys will allow him to. But in this situation, he has not done himself any favors on the witness stand, and I would imagine he will continue not to do himself any favors at all. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We got to get an update on the Israeli-Hamas war that is taking place right now. Innocent people dying every day, whether they're innocent Israelis or Palestinians. It is a tragedy. It is awful. Is there an end in sight? I don't think there'll be any peace in that region. But coming up next, joining us to talk a little bit about this, he's a former congressman and also hosts a show in New York on WABC called The Middle. Former Congressman Anthony Weiner will be joining us next. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Buddy, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super hero, that is, because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. Tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well. So I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
The Klondike Casino is a friendly local spot that features their signature restaurant, the Klondike Grill, serving up fresh food fast. Open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner just off the 95 freeway on Sunset Road in Henderson. You will find the Klondike Casino featuring all your favorite games from the Strip in the comfort of a neighborhood casino. You can place a bet at their full-service sportsbook or start your day with a breakfast plate that comes with your choice of potato and toast. Or check us out for lunch or dinner and try one of our many sandwiches like the popular beer-battered fish sandwich or the Philly cheesesteak. Check out the full menu at KlondikeSunset.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Busy news day, busy news week. Of course, we have the third Republican debate that'll be on Wednesday, so we're going to have some on this week, certainly to talk about that. Hogan Gidley is scheduled to join us tomorrow, so we will have him on tomorrow. But joining me right now, always a pleasure having him on. Always appreciate it when he comes on the show. He's a former congressman. I really do enjoy his show, The Middle, on WABC. Does a great job there. It's always a pleasure having former Congressman Anthony Weiner joining us right now. Anthony, I appreciate you coming on again. How are you?
It's my pleasure, Brian. How are you doing?
Doing good. Appreciate you coming on, and so much to get to with you, of course, in a short period of time. Before we get to the Israel Palestinian conflict and Hamas, I do have to ask you about this story because it's crazy. I wanted to get your thoughts, of course, on the new House Speaker, Mr. Johnson. But what do you make of this story? And it seems like we're learning more and more about this guy every day, that he's into this gay conversion therapy stuff. And apparently he called his son an accountability partner. And it had to do with pornography. And it just seems crazier and crazier with this guy every day. What do you make of this?
Well, usually you don't vet a speaker once he's become speaker. Usually someone becomes speaker of the House, they have been around a while. We've gotten a chance to get to know them a little bit. They've had races for speaker that have vetted them more carefully. This was the 7th or 8th choice of the Republicans. And to some degree, we're going to have to learn about him as we go. There is an element of him that is fairly typical of that wing of the party right now. Very extreme, not very pragmatic in terms of, trying to get outcomes that would help the country. Look, we're going to find out more and more stuff. Some of it may turn out to be much ado about nothing. The guy has no bank account, for example. Covenant Eyes is a program that people use in recovery, and a lot of my friends use it, and I don't think that's a big deal. But the problem is that he is now, after the vice president, the next in line to the White House. But more importantly, any governance kind of thing that we have to do, keeping the government running, aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, fixing problems that we might have at the border, are going to have to go through him. So as much as we're learning about him as a figure and learning about his past and learning about some weird things we might find out about him, the biggest thing we don't know is whether he has any ounce of governance in him. The wing of the party that chose him does not. So this is going to be, whatever you may think of McCarthy, he got into trouble with his party because he was doing the very basic elements, not the hard stuff, the basic elements of governance. So we'll see if Speaker Johnson has any of that in him.
Let's talk about that, the wing of the party. When you were a congressman, you obviously had extremists on the far right. I'm not saying you didn't. But today, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Lauren Boeberts, the Matt Gaetzes, the Jim Jordans of the world, some of these people. What do you make of the far right now in 2023?
So, look, some things have changed substantially since I was in the House a decade ago. And the one thing is that the fringe is no longer the fringe of the Republican Party. They're the governing center, is a tough word to use, but they're the governing center of gravity for their party. And the House of Representatives and the Senate, there's always been a high premium. If you want to be the crazy, you'll get a lot of attention, but you won't get very much done. That was the traditional analysis that, look, we're going to have crazies, and we have them on the left as well. We always have. But now those are the people that are between us and not paying our debts, between us and not having a budget, between us and not having the basic elements of appropriation bills done, things like that. So it's a very different dynamic. We've always, in a weird way, I'm in the media now, you're in the media, we reward these loud, crazy voices, but we always have a chance to say, but don't worry about it. When it comes time to passing laws, we'll go to the adults. I don't know, practically speaking, who the adults are in the Republican Party. When you start to see Mitch McConnell as the responsible wing of the party, you've got problems.
I tend to agree on that. If you're just joining us, former Congressman Anthony Weiner joining us right now on the line. Does it concern you, Anthony, that new polls have just come out in some key swing states that are showing Donald Trump with a substantial lead on Joe Biden? Do you make anything of these polls, and does that concern you?
I do. As a matter of fact, I was just writing a script for a podcast that comes out on Wednesday mornings called The Middle Unplugged, where I kind of do my weekend show, but a little bit. The answer is I am. I've been saying to my audience, you probably have been saying it to yours, the national polls are meaningless. We basically know this is a tie country, 45, 10 with 10 undecided, if that many. And the only thing that really matters is these swing states and the swing voters within those states. So when you start to see polls that show Donald Trump prevailing in 5 of 6 swing states, I stand up and take notice. So I do think it's relevant. I don't think you can discount it by simply saying, well, these things will get better, or, people will come home when the voting starts. If I've been saying all along, it only matters what happens in the swing states, and I'm seeing bad polls in the swing states, I get concerned.
I guess the question I have for you is how? How is it possible that in 2023 that a former president who is facing 91 felony counts, and he's in court on the witness stand today, as I'm sure you are aware, a man who is facing 91 felony counts, and yet most of the Republican Party, if asked, if he's a convicted felon, doesn't matter whether it's 1 felony or 91 felonies or the Espionage Act, they would still vote for him over Joe Biden. What do you make of that?
Well, you said an important thing that was mentioned in this poll but wasn't stressed, and that is when you do say to people, if he's convicted, does that change their view? And the answer is it does. That becomes kind of a switch that goes off that means a 10-point difference in the polls. Mm-hmm. But putting aside that, for now, counterfactual, that it hasn't happened yet, I think it is important that we realize we have a weakness at the top of the ticket with Joe Biden. I think that it has to be addressed. And some people can dismiss it by saying, well, it's things outside his control or whatever. That could be the case. And this is the theme of my podcast that I'm noodling with now. I think there's a real concern that this age issue is less about issues per se, because people can say, oh, he might be old, but look at what he's done with the Inflation Reduction Act. Look what he's done holding the international coalition together. Look what he's done despite the opposition of the other party. I think there is something going on viscerally with the way he literally talks about the issues. And I was just looking at videos before we came on of him in 1988, when he famously got in trouble for comparing himself to John Kennedy or using speeches that other people had used. Looking at him in 2008 when he accepted the nomination to be vice president, and looking at him as recently as last week, there is a difference in the way he is aging than there is. Look, If Donald Trump just follows the teleprompter, a lot of his gaffes will go away. Joe Biden, his physical ability to do the job is being questioned. And that worries me as a Democrat, because I don't know how you change the way the man speaks. He is a much older man than he was 20 years ago, and it's really showing.
I don't disagree with you, but as a worried Democrat, I have to ask you, who is out there, and I'm sure you've been asked this question before, that you would say, Joe Biden, respectfully step aside, good job. I want this person in office. Who would that be for you, Anthony?
It's academic. I mean, with all due respect, Brian, who cares? It's not up to me. It's not up to the pundits. He's going to be running. It's going to be Trump v. Biden. And the question is, how do you figure out a way to manage this thing? The analogy that I made that, when FDR was in a wheelchair, they just had him behind a desk a lot. When you're having trouble speaking and you don't have the timbre that you used to, what do you do about that? I don't know the answer. Look, some things are definitely going to happen. This anti-MAGA broad coalition that's in this country, that is in the magnitude of like 65% of the electorate, they're going to come home. The idea that people are going to say, I don't want a convict to be my nominee, maybe Biden gets some votes there. But if you're someone who's trying to figure out how you fix Joe Biden, I'm not sure what you do. That's the problem, because it's not the what he's saying, it's the how he's saying it. But is it going to be Kamala Harris? Is it going to be Gavin Newsom? No, it's going to be these two guys. And the one thing we can hopefully hang our hat on is that Joe Biden knows how to win this race.
Are you happy with our vice president? I mean, I hear similar criticisms to her, not me per se, but similar criticisms to her as I did for Hillary Clinton back in the day, right? Maybe didn't transcend with everybody, didn't do enough interviews, maybe not great with the media. I didn't always agree with those criticisms, by the way, but I wanted to get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the vice president? And do you think at some point she could step in and be the president of the United States one day? It could be in a year from now, in 12 years from now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to have, whoever is the nominee in 4 years is going to have their hands full, because hopefully it's going to be after 8 years of Democratic rule. Traditionally, that's not a tough time to be running. We're really getting ahead of ourselves, but I defy you, Brian, to look at 3 years into any administration, to any vice president that was going gangbusters. It's not a place that it's really great to get an identity from. I'm sure she chafes a little bit at not being able to do more. She was given a very tough issue, the issue of immigration, which is a dog of an issue, because being oppositionist on immigration, being demagogic on immigration makes life very easy for Republicans. Yeah. I just want your listeners to know, and you've probably let them know about this. Joe Biden sent over a package this week to the Republicans and said, emergency aid to Israel, popular. Emergency aid to Ukraine, popular. Emergency aid to Taiwan to stand up against China, popular. And then he said 1,000 new immigration officers, 1,300 new officers to hear cases on amnesty so we can turn people around faster when they're not eligible, 350 new judges, and then 100 new machines to track fentanyl. And the Republicans wouldn't even bring it up because, frankly, they just want the issue. So, again, that's a Kamala Harris issue. If I were she, I would be out beating the tar out of the Republicans for being obstructionists on this. But overall, I don't really think, again, not to minimize it, but I don't think it matters too much who the vice president is 3 years in. Joe Biden is going to be the nominee. What happens 4 years from now is another question.
You touched on something that's interesting, because back in the day when you were a congressman, you were actually a lawmaker. There's a reason why they come up with that word, right? You put things into law, you pass bills, you sponsor bills. I feel like there are so many people in Washington, D.C. out there, like the Jim Jordans of the world, who have never passed a bill in their life. There's a reason why we call people like you lawmakers. What would you say to the people in Washington, D.C. today that are more noisemakers than actual real lawmakers?
Well, it's a real problem, and you've put your finger on a structural problem that we now have. We used to reward guys who would go to Washington, and women, obviously, who would go to Washington, put their head down, become experts at certain issues. Other members of Congress would rely upon them, and it was time to draw up laws, they would be there. And the problem was we don't really reward people like that anymore. In fact, the people like that are frequently primaried from their left or from their right for being too much institutionalists and trying to make too many compromises. It's a real challenge that we have right now in American civic life, that we really are rewarding the extremes. And I say this of both parties, but the difference is the extremes of the Democratic Party, they still have things that they want to get done. They still have laws that they want to pass. They still have amendments that they want to do. I was called extremist because I support a single-payer health care plan. But at the end of the day, I did a deal, got as much as I could out of Obamacare, and moved on to be an advocate for Obamacare. The extremists on the Republican side just want to light the place on fire. So if you're a Republican and you want to make a law and you want to sit down with the Biden White House or sit down with the Republicans, the Democrats rather, you not only don't get rewarded for that, you get penalized by getting a primary. That is a seismic difference in American public life right now that is very troubling.
Yeah, you make a really good point there. Let's talk about, well, I wish it was under better circumstances, Anthony. I'm sure you would agree what's going on in Israel, the Hamas attacks. What was your first reaction when you heard about these Hamas attacks? A lot of people are characterizing it as Israel's 9/11, which I probably would agree with. What was your first reaction when you heard about what took place?
Well, my first reaction was this is more of the same. I thought back to 2014 and 2008, the other times that Hamas has launched attacks on Israel in the form of rockets falling on civilians, coming over, thousands of them, hundreds and hundreds coming over. Remember, in 2014, there was about 1,600 rockets that fell over the course of a 4 or 5 day period, and that was considered a war. And then I started to hear the details that we heard, and we'd heard that this was a very, very different type of thing. And this was a pogrom. This was a very different type of incursion and it was jaw-dropping. It was jaw-dropping because it undermined everything that I thought I knew about Israel's ability to protect her citizens. I always knew that places in Sderot and like that were near the Gaza border were under almost constant threat. But the idea that Hamas was able to do this almost kind of, this attack that almost, looked like the savage, the mongrel savages of hundreds of years ago. So it was very alarming. And to some degree, it reminded us something that many civilians in our side of the water have forgotten, is that, the Israelis made a calculation in 2005 to leave Gaza, to let them govern themselves. And at the time it was considered, by the way, it was a Sharon government, one of the most conservative governments imaginable in Israel that had done that. And part of it was to test this theory that if left to their own devices, not entirely, I'm not going to say that they were entirely independent by any stretch, but if left to their own devices, would it just become a place the terrorists ran? And unfortunately, that's what happened in Gaza. Hamas took over, and they have continued to practice this various versions of what they would like to see, which is wiping out Israel.
Anthony, what do you make of, at universities across the country, these pro-Palestinian rallies where some people are taking down posters of people that have been kidnapped in Israel? I know how much you love New York City, and it's even happened in New York City where people are taking down these posters. Some of these people yelling out, Nazi slurs to the Jewish people in cars. We see these videos on social media, just this vile hatred. What do you make of what's going on in this country and these people that are taking down these posters everywhere?
Well, I'll be honest, Brian, I've been talking about this, and so have we all who are supporters of Israel. We've got a problem on the American left in that the story of David and Goliath has somehow gotten turned on its head, that Israel, this population of 9 million people, the size of New Jersey, that's surrounded by 20 countries that have been at war with her since her creation, that somehow she's the oppressor. And this has been a problem, but it's been particularly acute in this. And by the way, the right has their problem with anti-Semitism run amok. It's not like this is only a problem on the left, but on the left, the idea of the instinct of young people on college campuses to run towards what they think is peace or run towards what they think is the oppressed, totally understandable, ahistorical, but understandable. But something has happened now that has transcended that. Someone who's tearing down a poster of a Jewish baby who is held hostage by Hamas is nothing less than an anti-Semite. I mean, that's what they are. There's no other rational explanation for that. Someone who doesn't understand what from the river to the sea means a one-state solution, wiping out Israel and her right to exist, not understanding that, just thinking it's a cool slogan. I kind of have some sympathy for that idea. I've been dealing with people like this for decades now, trying to explain these issues. But there really is this ahistorical thing that is going on the American left that poses a real challenge to people like me, who consider myself friends of these people, who consider myself landsmen, allies of these people, who were there for their causes. Now to see them turning on Israel in this way that is, if not anti-Semitism, pretty darn close to it, I did an episode this week where I devoted 2 hours on the radio to just the vocabulary of this thing, the idea of Israel as an apartheid state, despite the fact that 25% of its population is Arab or Druze, and they have full rights of that. This whole idea of genocide, when actually more Jews have been wiped out during the history of this violence than anyone who could identify as Palestinians.
Right.
It's really problematic. But the good news is the people that matter, the people that are making decisions in this country, people like the president, the overwhelming majority in Congress, are getting this right.
So I agree with you. But with that being said, I have to ask, if you had a chance to have a conversation, to speak to a Tlaib or an Ilhan Omar, because they're getting a lot of criticism, some would say rightfully so, what would you say to them as a Jewish man? What would you say to them?
It's a bad example because they are, to some degree, doing their politics. They're Palestinian. They have large Palestinian constituencies. The fact that they're getting it, quote unquote, wrong, we've always had an element of Congress, people from Michigan, for example. That conversation would be a fairly quick one because I know where they're coming from. They're doing politics. They know they're saying things that are not necessarily true, but they're doing it to get elected. The conversations I want to have, and the ones I have been having, often frustratingly so, are with young people standing in my neighborhood in Union Square Park with signs up that said, ceasefire now, but doesn't say anything about releasing the hostages.
Right.
That say things like, end genocide, not understanding that that's a way that people cheapen the real Holocaust, the real Shoah, the real genocide. And while 1,400, 1,500, 1,600 innocent Palestinians is terrible, it breaks your heart, it's not a genocide. When 700,000 Palestinians had to leave their land in 1947 and 48, but 900,000 Jews were evicted from Arab states during that same period. I guess what I would say is that there are some people in this conversation who should know better, who probably do. Tlaibs of the world probably do know better. The young people who would otherwise be allies on the left of Israel, who don't know any better, those are the people we should be focusing our attention on.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. Speaking of Tlaib, they wanted to censor her. George Santos, you saw that vote. I'm wondering if you were a sitting congressman today, would you have voted to out George Santos, or would you have done what 31 other Democrats, I believe, did, which was say, no, we're not going to out him out, at least not yet. How would you have voted?
Well, I mean, I've said for months on my show that I don't think that he should be thrown out of office. I think he is going to resign on his own as part of a plea deal. That's generally the way these things go. And one way or another, he won't be reelected in 2024. Now, you've asked the formulation of the question that's much tougher, though, which is, if I was a member of Congress, how would I have voted? Knowing how important this is to, how people get fired up about these. The beauty of being on the radio and not being a member of Congress is I am free from being concerned about having a primary or someone being upset about it.
Right.
My general view is I don't censure people. I don't kick people out for being dumb, or for being a liar, to be honest with you. I don't consider that to be the kind of thing you lose your seat for. And I'd say something else. George Santos, my New York neighbors, George Santos' constituents made this mistake. They got to live with it. You can say they weren't told all the information. Okay, I'll buy that. His opponent didn't do a good job of getting the information out. I'll even buy that. But at the end of the day, we need to have some place where the buck stops. And I think it stops on election day when people cast their votes. They voted for this idiot. They're stuck with him, at least for another year or so.
What if he's convicted of a crime? Then does your position change?
I believe it does. I believe that's nominally different. But even that is a situation. I resigned from office when I had my scandal. And I did so for a couple of reasons. One, because I was going through trauma and I was going through stuff and I was putting my family through it. And I didn't think I could do a good job as a congressman at that point. But it also helped that Nancy Pelosi and John Boehner, the speaker and the majority leader, said, hey, pal, we don't want you around anymore. And when my own president went on TV and said, I hope he resigns, it becomes very difficult to do your job in any practical way. But I do believe that a line gets crossed when you are convicted of a crime. So I think if that's the case, again, I believe what's going to happen. Yeah. 97% of all these cases end in plea bargains because the federal government, when they're prosecuting you, they have a way to make things very difficult for you. I don't think George Santos will be something we'll be talking about when I'm back on your show, God willing, in a couple of years.
Yes. Not to go back to that and belabor the point, but you bring up something interesting. You go to work every day, and then all of a sudden, in an instant, You have Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, the president of the United States saying they don't want you there anymore. How do you deal with that? How do you drive home and how did you deal with that mentally? I would imagine you would deal with it probably much better now because you're doing much better now than you were back then. But how did you deal with that at the time? I'm just curious.
Well, just to clarify, Chuck Schumer never did. He said it was up to my voters right up to the very end. But look, you can make an argument that the very thing that was wrong with me mentally and spiritually was that I didn't have an inner core that was very in touch, wound up protecting me when I had 22 cameras outside my house and I was the most Googled name in America and I was going through this trauma. So, I didn't last long. I tried to hang around as long as I could. But it was very difficult. It's very difficult to be part of that maelstrom. And with me, it was a personal failing and that I was doing things online I should not have been doing, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But all that being said, even years later, before I got into recovery and before I realized that I was dealing with an addiction that, it was difficult. It was very difficult. And I can tell you, George Santos is not an effective congressman right now.
Right.
There are the system has a way of working. Now, people say he has no shame. I admit I would not have lasted as long as he did. And I only lasted a couple of weeks with my situation.
Right.
But I don't, one of the reasons I have some empathy is that I've been in that kind of maelstrom before.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
What do you miss most and least about being a politician?
Well, there are moments, great question. There are moments in American civic life that I feel that during Hurricane Sandy, which was a year after I left, and my district got hit very hard. I felt that if I was there, if I was advocating for them, if I was able to organize down there like I could as a congressman, I would have been able to help. Moments like this, to be honest, when I think someone who has some understanding of these issues, who's worked on them for years and years, the issues of the Middle East, might be able to add some clarity on behalf of my party, which is getting pretty badly divided over this.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments, but there aren't a lot. I don't sit at home watching C-SPAN 3 throwing shoes at the TV. I really don't. There are a lot of times where I reach out to my former colleagues and they say this is not a fun time to be there. It's not a time that you're getting rewarded for the right types of things. Now, I can tell you I was pretty good at that hand-to-hand combat on Fox News and saying the pithy speeches and everything else. I might have been able to do it. I might have even been able to be good at the politics of today. But I don't miss it as a place that, I like getting stuff done. I like the idea. I honor the idea of solutions. One of the reasons I like your show is that you talk about trying to solve problems.
Right.
It's not really valued there in Washington very much right now.
Yeah, no, I certainly tend to agree with you. I guess this is maybe my last question. I saw you on Jesse Waters a few months ago, and it was interesting to me because he's throwing out all this red meat, right-wing nonsense at you, like Democrats are responsible for all the crime in New York City and the crime across the country. And then what you did is what any intelligent person would do. You provided him with actual facts while saying, listen, it's still too much crime. I feel like almost everybody on Fox News does that, right? They just throw things at you and they don't, share the actual facts, and they just want to blame Democrats for everything. It seemed like that's what that whole interview was like with Jesse Waters. You're throwing facts at him, you're proving him wrong, and he just keeps going with the right-wing red meat.
Well, what I found, and I don't do Fox nearly as much as I used to, and now I go on because I guess there's generally this idea when you're a radio guy, you want to promote your show. Mine's called The Middle on WABC Radio. Encourage people to check it out in podcast. Yep. Here's what was puzzling to me, and maybe you watch this stuff more than I do. It seems the discussion is entirely state kind of a bumper sticker, throw it out there, get the response, and then move to the next bumper sticker. It's not. I wouldn't mind having a conversation about crime in the United States. It's some interesting stuff, and I think there are Democratic positions and there are Republican positions. But he was like, Biden bad, respond, and I'd respond. Democrats love crime, and I would respond, and then he'd move on to something else. I can't imagine it's good TV. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I enjoy and do on my show. We have a very conservative listenership. I'm one of the few left-wing guys on there. And I honor the idea that people call in with ideas and want to argue with me a little bit. I think that's perfectly fine. And frankly, we need a little bit more of that. But if what they're doing on Fox News, and maybe I should watch more of it, is just repeating the bumper sticker over and over again until they get to the next block of commercials for chairs that help you stand up, I don't think that particularly is very interesting TV or radio, which is why all these cable news guys, I think they're declining every year.
Yeah.
Every year, there are fewer and fewer people who want that kind of thing, and more people are gravitating towards something resembling politics that they like, but they do want to hear the other hand clapping back a little bit.
I wanted to ask you this real quickly. I remember when you first started doing this show, which is a great show, by the way, The Middle on WABC, and Sean Hannity invited you and your co-host on. And he asked you, have you changed? Have you become a better person? And you basically said, yeah, I have, but that's for everybody else to decide. And he just kept belaboring the point and asking you over. And it was like over and again. And it was like uncomfortable. What do you remember about that interview? I don't know if you've gone on since, but I just felt it was very uncomfortable and unreasonable the way he treated you in that interview.
In fairness, I wasn't at the top of my game either, right? I hadn't been in front of a camera for a very long time since the last time. You know, one of the things that, you know, they say in recovery is what other people think of me is none of my business. And then I went on this show where the guy is saying, prove to me that you're a different person. And from the very foundation of my thinking nowadays is that's not my job. I just have to try to live every day, try to be as good a person as I can. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Yep.
But I wasn't at my best. But he's an asshole. I mean, so, you know, so going on and saying someone who was on there to try to promote their show and who had a very public fall from grace, are you a better person? And when I said something like that's for other people to decide, well, that's not a satisfactory answer. Could I have done it better? Maybe today, if I went on, would I have sharper elbows and be kind of ready to joust a little bit more? But I think that, you know, I'll tell you what was interesting about that, Brian, is that I went on in this kind of hostile environment. And what came back over the transom from his viewers was very supportive, actually, were people saying, listen, I didn't think that was very nice of him. I appreciated that you made a hat tip to your 12-step recovery and all that other kind of stuff. It doesn't matter, to be honest with you, but it should come as news to nobody that Sean Hannity is not something that you're not gonna have nuance or compassion or empathy going on with that guy.
Well, to his defense, at least he didn't name a list of all the people that have died around the Clintons that knew the Clintons. That was probably one of the most ridiculous, that clown, probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And you know what? I think he did it just to get a rouse out of you, and it worked, sadly, but I would have gotten angry also, right?
I mean, look, it is, you know, it's always this thing. I don't know if you remember that famous, I guess it was 1988 question to Michael Dukakis, what would you do if your wife had been raped? Would you support the death penalty then? And he gave this very dispassionate, you know, answer about the death penalty or whatnot. There's this expectation sometimes that people want to see a certain like visceral reaction from you when you're asked things. And the problem is maybe with practice, I don't do that all that well. I can do performative outrage with the best of them, Brian, let me tell you. And sometimes I do it on my radio show. But I am out of practice doing it. I don't know how much people really want to see that anymore. One of these days you'll have me on and I'll do just performative outrage for 20 minutes and we'll see if your listeners appreciate it.
I'll have to get a far right MAGA guy on that doesn't like you and to get you going, but we won't do that now. Anthony, before I let you go, please give out the information. I love your show, The Middle on WABC. Give out the information, how people can watch it, and follow you.
Well, it's a good old-fashioned radio show on Saturdays from 2 to 4. You can get it on WABCRadio.com. Or you can always download it as a podcast. It's called The Middle with Anthony Weiner. And I have one that comes out in a different feed. Don't ask me why, called The Middle Unplugged. And I encourage you, that drops every Wednesday in the middle of the week. But I appreciate you having me on, Brian.
Anthony, always appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Look forward to having you on again down the road. And have a good week, my friend. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, pal. You too.
All right. Anthony Weiner, everybody, former congressman. Even those who maybe don't like him, you can't deny the fact that this is a very, very intelligent guy. He's a smart guy when it comes to the issues. He made his mistakes in the past. He's done those mistakes. He's certainly paid the price for them. And now moving forward, I love mixing it up with him and talking about what's going on in the world. I think he's a really smart guy. He's a smart guy that made mistakes. We're all not perfect. And I'm glad he's doing better. And quite frankly, I would much rather have him in office than a lot of the other Democrats that are in office today. I'll be honest with you right there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we are going to switch topics. We've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Winn, coming in studio for hour number 2. Maybe I can get his blood boiling right to start the show. I know Justin would love that. We are going to talk some Raiders with him. I have some opinions that maybe some Raider fans might not like, but I will share those with you. I did go to the game yesterday. We'll talk about that with Winn. We'll talk a little NBA. We got some college hoops in Las Vegas tonight. I'm psyched. I'm looking forward to it. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent, on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies, and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go, where we've been serving farm food and crafted cocktails for over 2 decades. Visit us for the full Hash House experience at any of our 5 Las Vegas locations. Hash House A Go-Go is where old school meets new and gets twisted. We bring people together over good food and fun. Come in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and come hungry because our portions are huge. Visit us online to see our entire menu at hashhouseagogo.com. Hash House A Go-Go. It's a Midwest thing, and there's nothing else like it.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies.
For the grinders who rise before the sun, the predators who stalk the odds, the winners who demand an edge.
You're listening to the boss of the big ball, JP the Ticket.
Listen every weekend, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to Vegas Scoreboard Express live on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400 as I unleash a barrage of insightful analysis, expert predictions, and winning strategies from the sharpest minds in sports betting. to get your money back from the sports books. Go to jbtheticket.com and tune in to KSHP this weekend, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to win with the Sharps. JB the Ticket, Vegas Scoreboard Express. All money, all sports, no bull. Missed the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast and radio listening.
Hi, Doug Basham here. Join me Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon right here on KSHP, AM 1400, 107.1 FM, and on major social media sites. As always, I'll tell you what your conservative, corporate-controlled, right-wing propaganda hate media isn't. You're welcome. That's Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on KSHP. Be there.
They were one of the most successful bands to ever hit the recording scene. The Bee Gees. The showroom at South Point presents the ultimate tribute band honoring the Bee Gees. Staying Alive. Solid gold hits. November 10th to the 12th. Tickets at the box office, online at southpointcasino.com or charged by phone. 702-797-8055. Staying Alive. The music of the Bee Gees at the South Point.
Banachek, the greatest mentalist alive. He's the #1 mind-reading act in the world. Joe Rogan calls Banachek the best I've ever seen. Banachek's Mind Games Live, taking mind reading to new heights at the Strat Hotel, Casino, and Skypod, Las Vegas.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. We're scheduled, by the way, to have Hogan Gidley joining the show tomorrow. Oh, boy. You want to talk about a Trump loyalist who is the head of his campaign? I don't know why these Republicans want to be tortured, but they agree to come on, so be it. Anyway, welcome back to the show. It is Monday. Before I get to our special guest, I want to tell you guys about Blake Winn from the Keller Williams Group. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home, no better person. The former governor, his grandfather, Kenny Gwynn. Blake grew up here his entire life. He knows the city inside and out. So if you're thinking of buying or selling a home, please give Blake Gwynn a call. You'll get $1,000 cash back if you mention the name of the show, which is Pushing the Limits. 702-540-3311. Again, that number, 540-3311. It is Monday, and that means it is C-Win Fun Day, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chris Winn in the house. Chris, thanks for being here. You're wearing a very bright yellow shirt. It matches your skin tone. Much better than my red shirt, I will agree. You look much better looking than I do today. See, I'm starting off with a compliment.
Wait, hold on. Time out, wait. Numchuck. Today? It's not any different than
I already got him angry. I try to give him a compliment and throw him, a fruit basket, and this is what he does with it.
I appreciate it. You know what? I appreciate it. It's great to be here, Brian. Yes, it is a Monday, of course. I got a chance to check out your interview there with Anthony Weiner, the former congressman, obviously.
The Winn, man, the Winn.
Yeah.
I got to be honest.
I will say this. He's an interesting individual. He's a very interesting guy.
I will be honest. I wouldn't say this to him because it would probably be disrespectful. But it's a compliment. His ex-wife, I always had a crush on her.
Absolutely.
Huma Abedin, very attractive.
Absolutely.
Very attractive and smart lady, and I've always liked her very much.
Yes,
yeah,
I was.
She's awesome.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
I should say.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
Absolutely.
What you got,
Hold
Chuck?
on. That's orange, not yellow.
It's actually tangerine, gentlemen. Right? Tangerine. Yeah.
I was just trying to be nice.
If we're going to get technical about it. Yes.
Fair.
There it is.
So, Chris, I went to the Raiders game yesterday.
You
and
did.
Obviously, this is the start for Coach Pierce as a head coach. And I've had a little bit of criticism on his resume. For example, not having a winning record, being a high school coach, and college football had some issues with alleged cheating going on. But I also came to the game yesterday with an open eyes, I guess you could say, open heart. Okay, let's give this guy a chance. And I did pick the Raiders to win yesterday, as I said all week last week, just because win one for the Gipper. Let's play hard. He's a guy that's won Super Bowls. He obviously was a very accomplished player.
Right.
And the one thing I noticed, Chris, is that all the players were having fun. Now, obviously, it helps when you win, and the Giants are terrible. We'll get to that. And their starting quarterback got hurt like the second set of downs.
Again.
Yeah, again, right. But with that being said, start by positive and saying that team played really hard. They played very well. O'Connell was efficient. He didn't make any mistakes. meaning he didn't force throws. He didn't do anything that he didn't have to do. He made the right plays. And by the way, he threw some good balls that should have been caught too. I thought he had a really solid game. He also had great protection, and he did everything right. And I was impressed with him. Again, you're playing a terrible football team with a pretty good defense, but a terrible football team without their starting quarterback out there. With all that being said, it was nice to see certain guys that weren't getting catches, like Hunter Renfrow, getting actually involved in the football game. They utilized him yesterday. Devontae made some. Josh Jacobs was unbelievable yesterday. Fun game, fun atmosphere. Players were having a good time. They were enjoying football again. So anyway, it was nice to see.
Absolutely a good start, right, to Antonio Pierce's interim head coaching career, right? We understood, unfortunately, right, for Raider Nation, Brian, we've seen this story before, right, when it comes to interim head coaches. We saw it, obviously, when John Gruden got bounced out with Rich Bisaccia. Now we see it with Antonio Pierce after the Josh McDaniels fiasco that went on for years. It's a team that's in transition. It's a franchise that's in transition. You've talked about it for the past 4 or 5 days since everything that went down regarding a McDaniels-Ziegler era being over, right? Essentially, it is turning the page. It's getting away from the Patriot way, right? That was the idea from Mark Davis and the powers that be over there with the silver and black when they brought in Josh McDaniels, and Ziegler was like, hey, we've seen what they've done in New England. We think that we can replicate it here on the West Coast, here with the Raiders. It did not happen. It did not transpire that way, and so they did go a different direction in the short term with Antonio Pierce. Now, I don't anticipate, much like Rich Bisaccia, that that's going to be the decision long term. It is for this season, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But a good start, yes. This is something we also should bounce around too, Brian. I want to get your take. A little bit too much as far as the post game. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about, in the locker room, you got the whole team firing up cigars in the locker room.
That was ridiculous.
You got, look, I get it. All right. It's a joyous type thing to get a victory in the NFL, regardless of who it's against. But it did have a feel of you guys trying to, really? This wasn't a playoff game. This wasn't even a game against a decent NFL team.
Let's talk
about
that.
I did have an issue with that post game. But yes, no question, it was good to see them turn the page and be able to turn a negative into a positive on a Sunday afternoon.
I said about all the positive that I'm going to say. Now I want to focus on what you just mentioned, which is a little bit of criticism. Okay, let me just start by speaking obvious. The Giants are a terrible football team. Their defense is maybe average. The offense is terrible. If you look at the last month, they can't even score double digits. That's how bad their offense is. On top of the fact that your starting quarterback gets hurt again. It looked like he tripped over his own feet 2 plays in a row, gets sacked, sort of, and he's out of the game. The Giants are terrible. This is a really bad football team. Now, with that being said, arguably the worst team in the NFL just blew out the Raiders a few weeks ago. I'm talking about the Chicago Bears. So any win is a good win. With that being said, we're not going to know how good of a head football coach Pierce is 5-6 weeks from now. This is the honeymoon stage. Let's wait and see in a month and a half from now how many wins and losses they have, and if the team is playing at any level that they played yesterday or the same level. Then I think then I think you'll be able to judge Pierce a little bit more. From what I saw yesterday, honeymoon stage, the team was certainly relieved that Josh McDaniels wasn't on the sidelines. That's a good thing. Again, I will say this about the owner of this football team, Mark Davis. And we've learned some things in the last several weeks that makes me respect him a little bit more. We know that this was a terrible decision he made in hiring McDaniels in the first place. I give him a lot of credit, at least for doing this, because this is something that a lot of owners, Chris, would not do. A couple weeks ago, we've learned he spoke to almost every player privately, especially the leaders of this team, about their thoughts on Josh McDaniels. He had those private conversations with them. He has those relationships with them, which I think is so important. Because guys like Davante Adams, they wanted out the door like a month ago, right? Some of these guys, Josh Jacobs, but I truly believe that those types of conversations help the situation a little bit and maybe will pay dividends later in the year. So I give him credit for that. The fire was the right fire at Ryan. Listen, McDaniel shouldn't have been hired in the first place. He apologized, we learned, to players for what has happened this season. But this season is not over. Now, the proof will be in the pudding, like I said.
Okay, so let me reflect on that real quick. So now I'm going to get negative when it comes to the Raiders, all right? And this has been something that's been discussed not only with you on your show, but in the Vegas media as well, too. There's been this kind of...
you do other shows?
Well, a couple.
I didn't know that.
A couple other shows. So, there's this idea out there, and I won't call it excuses. I won't say that, it's just people being homers when it comes to the Raiders. But there's almost been a lot of takes tossed out there making excuses for Mark Davis, right? Let's be extremely clear. He has not been a good NFL owner since he took over.
Definitely not.
Since Al Davis, his father, passed away back, I believe, in 2011, and then Mark Davis assumed control of the Las Vegas Raiders. He has not been a good NFL owner. There have not been, you cannot point to, a number of moves that Mark Davis has made, and clearly you can't point to any success on the football field in which the Raiders have gone from A to B and been successful. It just hasn't happened, all right? Yes, you can look at the dynamics that is making the move to Las Vegas from a financial standpoint, being something that's beneficial for the organization. Okay, I get that. You can chalk that up in Mark Davis's corner. But when it comes to all things football, whether it's hiring head coaches, whether it's draft picks, whether it's every aspect of an NFL franchise looking to get from point A to point B and being a quality football team, the Raiders are not that. So I guess in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say here is that a lot of this is on Mark Davis. It is. He's just not a good NFL owner. I'm sorry if Raider Nation out there feels like they're offended by me saying that, but the proof, and you just used the phrase, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. It's been a terrible organization. And this is coming from someone who is a fan of the Detroit Lions, okay? An organization that's been inept to the core for 3+ decades. So the Raiders just haven't been good. So fast forward to now, right? You just talked for the last couple of minutes about Antonio Pierce. He's not going to be the head coach here, all right? He's going to be the head coach here No. Well, it's not.
Here's why I might
he's the interim head coach. They're not hiring to be the head coach. They're not going to. Okay, so let me finish my point. So it's essentially it's a tryout for him. But it's not like the Raiders. The Raiders haven't given any indication whatsoever that he is in their long-term plans, i.e. next season.
Let me respond to that.
So I'll cap off what I'm saying by this. Okay, it's going to be another huge point in Mark Davis's, I guess, football ownership here, the decision they make as far as going forward and what direction they want to go in the offseason. And look, Brian, I mean, you say you want to disagree with me. There's football people that are experts in the NFL, that cover the NFL, that cover the Raiders. And nobody in the last week has sat back and said, "Oh yeah, Antonio Pierce, he's the interim head coach." Well, and by the way, if they win, say they win 3 or 4 games the rest of the season, nobody is saying that Antonio Pierce is going to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders come 2024-25. No one is.
Okay, so first of all, I'll start out by saying I don't care what everybody else says. Everybody else said, most people said that covered the UNLV football team, that Marcus Arroyo deserves to come back for another year. So I stopped paying attention to what other members of the media say, and I just give you my own opinions. And here's my opinion.
Wait, most people said that about Marcus Arroyo?
A lot of people.
I would disagree with that.
On the flagship station of UNLV, including those that do color commentary.
But you know the deal, though, Brian. Those are people that work essentially for the team.
So let me just give you my opinions on why I might disagree with you. So even though the situation a couple of years ago was very different, you had a guy by the name of Bisaccia and Ole as the offensive coordinator who did a wonderful job the remainder of that year. The team got better. They got to the playoffs. And Mark Davis made a very big mistake that I would hope, and I knew it was a mistake at the time, that I think everybody would agree with now, is that should have kept those people in place. Forget about even the hiring of Josh McDaniels. It was a big mistake. So I can tell you, in my opinion, I'm not saying Pierce is going to do that. But what I am saying is, if he wins 5 of his next 6 games, how many more games do they have left in the season? They're 4 and 5, right?
There's 8 games. Essentially, it's the midpoint of the season. There's 9 games left.
So if they win, if they go, let's just say 7-1, or even 6-2, which, by the way, I don't think they're going to do. Let me be clear. But if they do go 6-2 or some miraculous record and the team improves and the players love them, which they seem to like them right now, but we'll have to wait and see how it goes. If that scenario does happen, and only in that scenario, I do believe Mark Davis will keep Pierce. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. What I am saying is if they have that record of like a 6-2 or a 7-1, and the players are all on board and they want this guy to stay, I can absolutely see a scenario where maybe they could keep him. So I don't completely rule it out.
Okay, so your take is you're kind of separated from the situation. So you don't and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but you don't have an understanding of how the process takes place. The owner, Mark Davis, does not ask the players, okay, or does not talk to the players and say, "Hey, do you think Antonio Pierce should be the coach?" That's not how it works. What is going to happen, Brian? All right. Again, what's going to happen is in the NFL. The situation was a little bit weird because you had Ziegler, and it was a package deal, right, where they brought Ziegler in along with Josh McDaniels. So that was a unique situation in which the Raiders engaged in to bring that regime, I'll call it, in here to Las Vegas, all right? The way it normally works in the NFL, 99.9% of the time, is you hire a general manager, and the general manager hires a head coach, all right? And that's how it works. And it's not a situation where Mark Davis is going to sit down with Devontae Adams or sit down. Oh, no, well, hear me out. He's not going to sit down with Aiden O'Connell, or if Jimmy Garoppolo ends up being the quarterback again, which is absolutely possible, right? He's not going to sit down with Max Crosby and say, "Oh yeah, you're a huge fan of how Antonio Pierce does his business in the NFL, so we're going to hire him as the head coach." Okay. That's not how it works. That's a huge key.
Okay,
Yeah.
Again, let me disagree with you and put it this way. First of all, this is a very unique situation, number one. And we learned that this is a very unique situation when we learned that Mark Davis sat down with just about all the players individually, especially...
Wait, time out. It's not unique. Okay, in the NFL, coaches get hired and fired all the time, so you're wrong.
You got to let me finish with what I was saying.
I guess you keep talking, but it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, it doesn't make any sense to you.
Coaches get fired and hired all the time.
It doesn't make any sense to you, but I'm sure a lot of people that are listening right now, it does make sense. So let me just finish my statement. What I meant by a unique situation is that before Mark Davis pulled the trigger and fired Josh McDaniels, he decided that he wanted to hear from the opinions of some of the players out there because he felt like, and this has been quoted, that the season was lost and it was his fault, and he apologized to the players, and he wanted to hear their opinions on Josh McDaniels before pulling the trigger and firing McDaniels. It is not out of the realm of possibility for me to think that not every player, but if they have a winning record and if there's a lot of positive momentum with this football team at the end of the year, that there is a possibility that Mark Davis could speak to the Devontae Adams of the world. Now, I'm going to ask Numchuck if what I am saying sounds reasonable at all, because I think it's very reasonable what I'm saying.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so Justin understands what I'm saying, Chris. You're making
I
didn't
say I didn't understand what you're saying. I'm just telling you the dynamics.
Is that unreasonable with what I just said?
Well, it's okay. So saying something that's reasonable is fine. But having an understanding of how NFL teams or franchises actually hire coaches.
So let me be clear. I know exactly how owners of teams hire coaches, and they defer to their general manager, and usually people
100%.
Okay, but that doesn't.
The general manager, that's their job.
But that doesn't mean that the owner still can't defer to some key players on the team and get their thoughts. That's all I'm saying. It's a very reasonable opinion that I have.
That's fine.
Well, thank you. Okay, we have an understanding now. And again, let me preface it.
So you think Antonio Pierce is going to? You think Antonio Pierce? By the way, again, you're talking about a hypothetical. If they do go 6-2. Right, or 6-3, or 7-2,
yes,
or 8-1.
Yes.
Then I guess. Look, if I have two breasts, I'm a woman. Okay. I guess that could happen.
You're not a woman,
right?
but you do have breasts.
But you understand. I know. That's actually true. That's a good one, actually. So we're talking about a hypothetical. I get it. My whole take is this, Brian. All right, and yes, it is in the camp of people. Again, when I talk about certain topics, i.e. the NFL, I do pay attention more to people who know what they're talking about in the given sport, right? Okay. Same thing with college basketball, the NBA, and beyond. Okay, so the people that cover the NFL, the people that work for the Raiders, okay, there's an unimplied perception of is the way I'll put it. That Antonio Pierce is not going to be the head coach of the team next year.
Okay, well, I can tell you
so
right now, if he's 6-2, he will be the head coach next year.
well,
I could guarantee you that.
Ifs and buts for candies and nuts. What a Merry Christmas
and
we'd
the
all
reason
have.
why I say that is because of the history of Bisaccia. Mark Davis knows he made a mistake, and he should have kept those guys on board.
No, time out. We've talked about this before. We've gone over this on the air before. It wasn't necessarily a mistake not to keep Rich Bisaccia as the head coach here. No, you could have gone. No,
it's a big mistake.
You're missing out on the other options. What are the other options, Numchuck and PTL Nation out there? Other options are what? You hire somebody else besides Josh McDaniels, right? And Dave and Ziegler. You don't go the New England route. You could have hired somebody else.
But they didn't.
So it's not just Rich Bisaccia. Oh, they didn't hire him, so that was the wrong decision. They should have absolutely kept him.
Yes,
that's not.
Yes, they should.
And by the way, again,
obvious.
There's other people that completely disagree with you.
Okay,
that don't think Rich Bisaccia should have been the head coach.
Okay, well, I disagree with them.
And by the way, he has. Oh, by the way, another key point. He hasn't been a head coach anywhere else either. So it's not like
doesn't mean that still wouldn't have been the right decision.
Because he's not.
No, it doesn't.
Because I'm stating a fact. He's not actually a head coach.
Okay,
anywhere.
Doesn't matter. Those guys, if you talk to people around the team, those guys would have gone through a brick wall for him. They played hard. They improved. They got to the playoffs. They almost beat the Bengals the year that the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl.
Right.
I think if you ask most football people, they would tell you, looking back on it, that was a bad decision, and they should have kept that staff at least for one more year. With that being said, that is why I think this plays a little bit of a role. I'm not saying Pierce is going to go 6-2. All I'm saying is if he goes 6-2, if he wins a lot of football games in the second half of this year, Mark Davis is going to have a decision to make, and I believe Mark Davis will keep him. Now, I don't think he's going to go 6-2, but and they played a terrible football team yesterday. But they had fun out there, and I saw a Raiders team that wanted to play for their coach. We haven't seen that in a very long time. So that could – listen, the Raiders still have a lot of good football players, okay? Hunter Renfrow has not been utilized at all until yesterday for the most part. He played very well. Devontae Adams got looks. Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs was a big key for them yesterday.
Josh
as well,
Jacobs balled, man. He balled. He looked like the best running back in the league yesterday. Again,
which he's done at points throughout his career. He's looked that way, where he's been a quality guy. Here's what I'll cap off this whole discussion regarding Mark Davis, right? And regarding coaches.
Don't talk about
this, Brian? How about this, Brian Numchuck? How about this? Mark Davis, make a right move and a right call when it comes to the football side of your organization, all right? Because his track record is clearly evident right in front of us. It's on the paper right in front of us, all right? It's out there for all of us to see. He is a terrible NFL owner. Great WNBA owner, all right? Has back-to-back WNBA championships. But when it comes to him being an NFL owner, he is not good. That's not a hot take by Winn. That is just me stating the obvious, essentially, regarding Mark Davis in the NFL.
Numchuck, do you have a blood pressure checker? Do we have a blood pressure?
We do not.
It's a passionate topic, man.
Check his blood
and look,
pressure.
I'm not even a Raider fan. I'm not, you know, I'm not.
I never, by the way, for the record, I never said that Mark Davis was a good NFL owner. In fact, I've said
so this isn't a situation where I said you said something. This is a situation where I'm stating a fact and making the point.
What I have said is I've been hammering him a lot recently. What I have said is that I at least give him a little bit of credit for making the right decision, for firing Josh McDaniels. The team, I do also agree with you that smoking cigars after you beat a terrible football team is a really bad look, and that should never happen. That's embarrassing. Now, if you make it to the playoffs or you win a big game against one of the best teams in the league, I think that's acceptable. But to beat a team like the Giants, first of all, you should be beating the Giants. I mean, come on, give me a break. But we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Next week is a very interesting game because the Jets are in town. Jets are a better football team. I think we all could agree on that. Of course, they're without Aaron Rodgers, who will still be in town, I would imagine. But we will have to I'm going to make another prediction. Prediction City. I said the Raiders would beat the Giants. Wasn't an easy prediction. The spread was only 1.5 points. I think the Raiders, and I don't even know what the spread is, I think the Raiders are going to win against the Jets.
Wow,
really
little Shapiro pick here early.
I do.
Little a week before the game, Shapiro pick. I like it.
And if you pick the Jets, then it makes my pick feel a lot better.
Okay, so I haven't done my professional handicapping breakdown of all things Jets Raiders next week. But off the top of my head, I'll say this. The Jets are one of those teams in the AFC that are kind of a scary team. They are defensively, obviously, one of the best in the NFL. Their offensive situation leaves a lot to be desired. Let's put it that way. But this is a dangerous game for the Raiders because you're coming off, a win. I was about to say nice win. You come off a win against the Giants. So I'm going to be very intrigued, Brian Shapiro, to see the reaction of this football team and how they respond coming off that up against a team that they I think, in my own personal humble opinion, I think the Jets are a little bit better football team, but it's the NFL, and that's why they play the games.
Well, we got a little bit of massage music. Hopefully, we can get Chris.
It calmed me down a little bit.
Chris
a little Monday easing of the mind music going on.
Get Chris a little bit of lower his blood pressure a little bit. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, today is the opening day. It's already started of college basketball.
A lot of hoops.
So we got some college basketball tournaments in town today. UNLV opens up their season on Wednesday. I know we'll be there for that, unless Chris is working Wednesday night. I don't know. I'm
out. So I will be at the
Wednesday
game
night,
on Wednesday night.
UNLV hoops. We got some college hoops in action today. So we'll give a little preview of UNLV hoops, and when we come back, we will also congratulate UNLV football for a game that was never close against New Mexico. A lot of offense in that one. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Zyn World Premium CBD offers full and broad spectrum CBD oil, extracts, and capsules which are designed to help you feel your best. Their products are sourced from the best organic hemp and natural ingredients on the market and are tested for quality, purity, and potency. They have a full range of items from health and wellness to beauty to pets. Call 725-205-9223. Visit online at zynworld.com or stop by their location at 9895 South Maryland Parkway and Silverado Range Parkway. Mention KSHP for 10% off in store or use code KSHP online for 15% off.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Locally owned and operated, come on down to Academy of Hair Design located at 5191 West Charleston Boulevard, number 150, today to begin your career in cosmetology. There is something for everyone from cosmetology to nail technology. You will be able to have the hands-on training that is needed to succeed in this career field. Call 702-878-1185 or visit www.ahdvegas.com today.
The London Bridge Resort in Lake Havasu is the perfect place to vacation in style. Their beautifully designed suites include stunning views, a kitchenette, and free Wi-Fi. The well-reviewed and affordable resort has tons of amenities, including a breakfast buffet, kids camp, a 9-hole golf course, 3 pools, a marina, boat tours, a water slide, and a great nightlife scene. London Bridge Resort is centrally located in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Go to londonbridgeresort.com to plan your getaway today. London Bridge Resort, your Arizona oasis destination.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits. Don't forget to check out my friends at Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. I was over there the other day. They got some great promotions for the month of November. Sign up for a player's card and get all those details. But great food every time I have a meal there. It's very tasty. Great food, great atmosphere. I know Wynn's a big fan. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. We got Winn in the house. God, what a busy sports week as well. Before we get to some college hoops, because we're going to be watching USC and Kansas State tonight, live on TNT at T-Mobile Arena. 2 pretty good basketball programs, so we will be catching that, and the women are in town too. But
and a lot of the top teams around the country are in action in college basketball
some
tonight.
Great
too,
games.
For the first time.
I mean, I love March, but this is my second favorite month of college basketball because you got all these out-of-conference
Well, you're a
games.
huge college basketball guy.
I love it. But before we get to college hoops, congratulations to UNLV football again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Listen, New Mexico is a really bad football team. They're not very good. But in past years of the UNLV program, these were the games that they lost, right? On the road against not very good Mountain West teams. They struggled. This game was over within the first 5 minutes. And they set a school record for points. New Mexico had no answers for them. Special teams in every facet of the game. UNLV dominated, and they played like a bowl team. And they get their 7th win of the year. So it's really fun to watch. Now, Friday night, Chris, is going to be very interesting. Wyoming's a much better football team than New Mexico. So on paper, you could probably say, yeah, UNLV's probably better, but Wyoming's not a pushover. They're a pretty good football team. So they're coming to town, and this is also interesting. It will be the only college football game in action that night on national television. So the country will be watching it. Here in Las Vegas, Wyoming Cowboys coming to town, but not much to say about this New Mexico. And listen, UNLV just dominated. Odom has these guys that have bought in. They believe in themselves. They play hard for the coach, and Odom's doing all the right things. The play calling is phenomenal. He's utilizing the athletes that he has, and it's always nice to see a Liberty High School graduate performing so well. UNLV has their QB. All due respect to Doug Brumfeld. This kid's playing some great football.
Yeah, a couple
by the
key
way,
points.
they should have won the Fresno game too. He threw a great ball with 12 seconds
they
to
should
go.
have tied the game late.
Yeah,
it should have gone at least to overtime.
He is playing phenomenal football.
Yeah,
Really.
a couple key points, right, for this team, Brian. Obviously, winning football games right now, and in that game against New Mexico. Yeah, when you're up 35-0 at the half, 35-7 at the half, it's a pretty clear indication of the other team being outmatched. But you brought him up, Jade Maeva, 3 touchdown passes on Saturday. You love the running game with Vincent Davis Jr. and those guys in that backfield. Big keys for them as well, too. And they keep winning football games. Brian Shapiro, this is one of the more impressive college football turnarounds here in 2023, without question. All right? Not just in the Mountain West, but around the country. This is a football program that was in the dumps. This was a football program that had no sense of identity whatsoever over the past decade plus, and really over the past couple of decades plus. It has not been a relevant college football program. Well, they went to a bowl game in 2013. We get that. All right, but the turnaround that this coaching staff, led by Barry Odom, that has been able to kind of jumpstart and give a kick to the backside of this program has been rather astounding, to be honest with you. So, as you pointed out, a nice matchup on a Friday night where the nation, when it comes to college football, will have all their eyes on a Mountain West game.
Yep.
Between UNLV and Wyoming. This would be unheard of, right? Over the past 5-6 years.
They can win their
you think
8th
that
game.
UNLV Wyoming would actually be a game that actually mattered? Well, you know what? It is.
It does.
And you brought up the comparisons as far as the quality of each team. Right now, Vegas has UNLV a 4-point favorite in this game, so just over a touchdown favorite in this game. It's
going to be a good
game.
game.
It's absolutely spot on. Yep. That to me, I think that is a perfect gauge for where this football team is for UNLV as far and then taking on a team like Wyoming. So it's going to be super interesting to see what happens here in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium on Friday night.
Years past, Wyoming would probably be a 2-touchdown favorite, but it's going to be a fun game, and congratulations to UNLV on winning their 7th game of the year. I haven't really made a prediction on Friday, but I do think it's going to be a very entertaining and a good football game because, as I said, Wyoming's a pretty good team. Guess what? So is UNLV. UNLV's a good football team. So it's a good product, and hopefully I would hope the fan support would be much better than it has been since it's a Friday night game, and I don't know if the Knights are playing, probably not at home, but I think this is going to be a game where the fans certainly need to come out. Only 2 more home games.
Another key point, and that's what I was going to kind of dive into, right, Brian, real quickly here. Mm-hmm. So you take on Wyoming on Friday, and then you got the matchup against Air Force, which is still ranked, but got knocked off by Army this past weekend. So Air Force was the cream of the crop in the Mountain West up to this point.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Now it is Fresno State. I think that is looked at by most college football experts as the best team in the Mountain West this season. And
UNLV's playing now to win the conference, and
they could. And look, they're not going to be Brian. They're not going to be playing in some garbage bowl game.
No.
They're not going to be playing in some bowl game on December 11th or December 12th. They're going to be playing in a decent bowl game. So, again, the transition's kind of been astounding, kind of been remarkable, and it's great to see for all the people out there that bleed scarlet and gray here in Las Vegas.
So you're saying they won't be playing in the Winn Land Down Under Bowl?
Yeah,
exactly. Is that what you're saying? Okay, fair enough.
The Weed Whacker, Blue Bonnet, sponsored by .com Bowl on December 5th. No, then we play that.
So I've said this before, and Eric Harper, the athletic director for UNLV, has done this show multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of what he's been able to do, certainly from a standpoint of hiring this guy, Odom. It's turned out wonderfully. Firing Arroyo, which a lot of clowns in this town thought was the wrong decision. I said it was the right decision. LaRock is doing a great job with the women's program, basketball-wise, so he's got to make sure that she sticks around because she's put UNLV women's basketball on the national map. No question about that, winning the conference, and being a national top 25 team. But now we go to the UNLV men's basketball program, and let me start out by saying this. There's plenty of coaches that have been in this town in years past that I did not root for, that I did not like personally. I didn't necessarily root against them, but I wasn't a big cheerleader for them either. I wanted Dave Rice to win because he's a really nice guy. But I go on the air and I critique, and he knew that. And Dave came in studio here a few months ago. He knew that I was always honest, but never personal with him. I didn't like TJ Otzelberger as a person. He never wanted to be here. TJ's doing a good job at Iowa State. Didn't do a good job here. Marvin Menzies was just the worst on every aspect, in my personal opinion. Love Lon Kruger. Dave, as I said, nice guy. Kevin is a really nice guy. He's an easy guy to root for. I'm a little worried for him this year. First of all, I think they're picked 6th preseason.
Right.
Hypothetically speaking, Chris, if they finish in the middle of the conference this year and they don't make an NCAA tournament, which they won't if they finish 6th, and assuming they don't make the finals of the Mountain West Conference tournament, I'm giving you a hypothetical. If that happens, which it very well could, does he come back for a 4th year?
I think so. I think he does. Just because, and this is just a general, observation of how Eric Harper conducts himself in this position as the athletic director. I think he does. Again, you're giving kind of a specific, right?
I have to,
outcome, like super tunnel vision view of what could happen here. I think there has to be a view that the program is going in the right direction, right? There's got to be some kind of, I think that's the perception right now. Absolutely. Going into the season. Now, look, we understand, we get it. It's the beginning of the season, so we don't have any, idea what's going to happen here. It's obviously a big deal when you get the, recruits in here, the likes of DJ Thomas and some of these other pieces that they put on this basketball team that are why they're picked to be in the top 6. That's the way I'll talk about it, right? In the Mountain West. They're picked to be in the top 6 in the Mountain West. But and a lot of us, look, here in the Vegas media that have covered this team for a long time, we had made statements in the past, 8 to 10 months since the season ended, or not even 8 to 10 months, back when UNLV's basketball season ended in 2022-23, right? That there's got to be some visible progression in the program, right? Upward. There's got to be that. And so if Harp gets that sense that that's what's going to happen, and if it does transpire, like you said, where they end up being in the middle of the conference and then lose in the semifinals of the Mountain West tournament and don't get to the championship game, and then aren't considered because they play in the Mountain West and don't get considered for the big dance or an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament. There's going to be questions there, and I'm sure Eric Harper's going to want to sit down with Kevin and they're going to evaluate exactly what it is they need to do to get to the next level. The next level being one of the top teams in the Mountain West.
Right.
But I would anticipate that Harp, along with Kevin Kruger, by the way, and his coaching staff, have every expectation right now, here when we're talking about November of 2023, that they can win the Mountain West Conference. That's the approach, I'm sure, that Kevin Kruger, and I talked about DJ and some of these pieces that they brought in that are big time recruits, by the way, for a program like UNLV. So there is justification, I guess is the word I'll use, for them being positive and having expectations, Brian, that they can be one of the top teams in the conference.
Let me answer my own question. I disagree with you a little bit. So this is year number 3, and I also understand that Kevin's had different assistant coaches, and that has hurt in the recruiting process.
Right.
I think we all could probably agree, and I know we're going to get a chance to watch the team for the first time on Wednesday, that he probably has the most talent this year as he's had the prior 2 years. With that being said, the conference is not bad this year. I'm not saying he has to win the conference. I'm not saying he has to get to the NCAA tournament. However, you need to compete for a conference title, meaning be one of the top 3 teams in the league, and in the last week of regular season, be in the conversation. That's number 1. Number 2, get to the finals of the Mountain West Conference tournament. I mean, when was the last time that happened? It's a joke. Right. So the semifinals is not good enough anymore. Get to the finals of the Mountain West Conference tournament and compete in the conference for a title. Don't have to win it. Compete. If he does that, absolutely, I'm on board. But I believe that if year 3 is another mediocre year, and the last couple of years have not been very good, if this is another mediocre year where the fans aren't showing up, God forbid the team's in the playing game, which I don't think they will be this year, but if they lose in the quarterfinals even, and there's no berth in an NIT or an NCAA tournament, I think Eric Harper's going to have to make a decision here. And by the way, I want Kevin to succeed. As I say again, I like Kevin a lot. I love the Kruger family. They're just wonderful people, and Lon is a legend. We all know that. Kevin is an easy guy to root for. It's hard for me to say this because I like Kevin. I don't think he's a really good head basketball coach. And the reason why I say that is I don't think he's a great communicator. He was a really good player. He was a good, sound player. His father, there was something about his dad where he was just a really good communicator. I remember going to his father's practices. Kevin's just a different kind of cat. He's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more reserved. Doesn't mean you can't be a good head basketball coach. I'm just talking about right now. I'm not sure he's a good head college basketball coach. Now, I hope that changes, and I hope he proves me wrong. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, per se, but he's obviously not his dad. But with that being said, you have to compete for a title this year, in my personal opinion.
Right. Or else they should go in a different direction, you think?
Yes.
So you think, and I'll just repeat back to you. You think that after 3 years, Eric, the reason why, Brian, I was hesitant to say that they would go in a different direction because I don't think Harp and the UNLV athletic program want to be viewed as, okay, we just want to we're going to give the guy 3 years and just keep hitting the reset button.
Depends on
because
what
that's
happens.
what they've been doing, right?
Yeah.
That's what the UNLV basketball program and the football program, for that matter, has done, is just reset after reset after reset.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But Chris, Eric Harper's already proven that he's willing to pull the trigger with the football program.
Absolutely.
He's already a guy that's hey, we got to do this now. Different circumstance. This is year 3. I get all that, and I don't disagree with what you said. All I'm saying is these first 2 years have been mediocre to below average.
Okay, yeah.
You have to show
absolutely
improvement,
they have, yeah.
right? You have to show improvement.
But let me throw another scenario at you, Brian, okay? Because you presented the scenario of winning a Mountain West championship, right? Getting to the NCAA tournament. There are other ways you could gauge success for this team this year.
Sure.
What am I talking about? I'm talking about, how about this? Make the NIT. Go to the NIT.
They haven't been good enough,
and
Chris.
actually
They haven't
be
been good enough.
You know what I'm saying, though, Brian?
Yeah.
It's another option. It's another road.
Let me
No, you know what I'm
rephrase.
saying.
Let me
so it's
rephrase.
another road you could go down.
Let me rephrase.
If you're UNLV,
I
and
will-
actually you could draw success from
Let
the
me-
season
okay,
if you compete well enough where you're a decent team in the Mountain West.
Yes.
Where you go to the NIT and then you have some success there.
In order to go to the NIT in the Mountain West Conference this year,
right,
you have to compete for a title. It means be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the conference, right?
Exactly.
And don't lose in the quarterfinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament. At least make the semis,
no doubt,
or the finals, right? If he's doing that and he gets to the NIT, then I am all on board. There's no guarantee that he's going to do that this year, and that's what I'm saying. If you're not even good enough to get to the NIT by year 3, then maybe it's time to think about making a change. I think that's a pretty reasonable analysis, and that's what
You're being very reasonable
Am
today.
I
like
reasonable
this.
today?
Yes, you're being
Okay.
that's a very reasonable take. I will say that. But
Hot take?
I
Not a
just
hot
think it was
take.
funny. But Brian, you're right, because we're talking about this, right? And we're talking about college basketball right now with UNLV.
Yep.
Look, it is. Yeah, the NCAA tournament obviously is the holy grail for college basketball. If you're a name program, like, let's be honest, UNLV is a name program still, even though they've been garbage for a long time. They're still a name program. It's getting to the NCAA tournament. That's what people care about, right? So it's obvious that that you'd mention this off the top as being kind of the symbol for success,
It's
right?
more than that,
for
though.
this program. But I was just pointing out
Dave
that
Rice got to the
it was just hilarious, right? Because we broke down this program and this team, and I was like, well, they could go to the NIT. And what's hilarious, right, Brian? What's hilarious is they haven't even done that over the last 10 years.
No, Dave Rice also made multiple appearances in the NCAA tournament, didn't do a lick of good. He couldn't win a game in March, so it's actually more than that, but I think I agree with you. The first step is you got to get to the NCAA tournament. So we'll wait and see what happens. Listen, the game is Wednesday night, the opening game this season. They don't have the toughest out-of-conference schedule. The Mountain West Conference, I would expect, will be certainly just as good, maybe even a little bit better than it was last year. And our mutual friend, I know you like to say that when I say my friend, our mutual friend, who, by the way, joined me in McCaskey on the show Thursday and shared some incredible Bobby Knight stories. Larry Eustache is on the a paid coach for Boise State this year, so I find that to be very interesting. But we'll have to wait and see.
And
how the
speaking
season
of mutual friends, right, Brian? They take on Southern on Wednesday to open the season, and then Saturday night, UNLV has a home game at the Thomas & Mack, and our mutual friend, Anderson Hunt, obviously the most outstanding player in the 1990 national championship team here at UNLV, is getting his jersey retired, his number retired there on Saturday. So that's a pretty cool thing
Very
for
cool.
our friend Anderson to get an opportunity. Look, it's long overdue in my opinion. But that's going to be a lot of fun, too, on Saturday.
No doubt. Anderson's a great guy, and I'm really happy for him, and we'll get him in studio this week, I'm sure, to talk about that honor. Hopefully LJ and some of his former teammates should show up, and they really should. And regardless of what their thoughts are on the way the program has treated them over the years, that's got to be academic. You got to be there for Anderson Hunt. I'm hoping Greg Anthony's here. Probably not. Larry Johnson is his boy. LJ's got to be here.
Chap, we got a dilemma. Wednesday night, guys. Numchuck.
What?
Vegas Golden Knights, Los Angeles Kings, Wednesday night.
Nah, I'm going to
UNLV Southern. Okay, so they're playing Southern, man. Like,
I want to watch the basketball game.
I had to toss that out there.
All right, what are you going to go
The
to?
dilemma. I'm
college
kind of
basketball,
torn
man.
because I'm definitely going to be there Saturday for Anderson's retirement. So
It's college basketball, though, man. I mean, we got so many hockey games to go to, so I'm going to be going to the
we know
There's
we know you love it. You know you love your college hoops.
I
get
love
it.
hockey also, man. I love the NHL, but we have a lot of hockey games to go to. Not as many home college basketball games, so that's why I want to go to see UNLV and just get a look at the team.
Yeah,
that's all. I just want to get a look at the team for the first time. All right, see Winn and his bright tan shirt. Thank you so much.
Monday Night Football tonight.
Tangerine.
I got the
shirt.
Chargers are going to roll tonight, gentlemen.
So
against
I
the
got
New
a
York
prediction.
Jets.
Me and Cwen, we're going to be courtside for some college basketball tonight while watching the NFL game on my laptop. I can predict the future. I think that's what's going to happen tonight.
That's an outstanding plan right there. I like that.
All right. Hogan Gidley joining us tomorrow on the show. Thanks to Mr. Anthony Weiner for joining us as well. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.